Hello. This is the Spoil Rater channel where I spoil movies and rate performances. Now, this video is not going to be about breaking down a performance, but it's going to be talking about a character trope. And it's based off the review I did of Hattie McDaniel's Gone with the Wind last video, where I gave it a coontastic crap out of my 4 ratings of black performances. And the reason I gave it a coontastic crap is because basically she played the Mammy. She wasn't the first to play a black Mammy type character, but she was the most popular. She popularized it. She popularized it so much that it pops up in shows and movies throughout the 30s, 40s, 50s, and so on. And yes, even though that character arc isn't as prominent as today, they still, white people still keep it in and, they juice it up a bit, but it's still there, okay? If it's a big black lady or big middle-aged black lady who's doing domestic work, especially for white characters, yeah, that still kind of falls into the Mammy category. So I'm just going to break down my 3. Well, it's more than 3, but I'm not going to make this video long. So my top 3 reasons why the Mammy trope is not a good trope. Now, like I said, there are worser black tropes that I will talk about in the future. I'm not going to say what they are, but I'll definitely get to them when I get to the movie that has those characteristics in them. But right now we're going to talk about the Mammy trope. And to give a good definition of what it entails, I'll read basically the description of what TV trope provides us. And TV trope is that website. It's basically like the ultimate Spark Notes. If you were in high school or college and you wanted to cheat on your exams or at least anything in literature class, it has pretty much all the books and plays that you can kind of find out the characters and themes and motifs of any book or source of literature you want. TV trope has way, 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 way more stuff like that. Like I said, it breaks down movies, TV shows, music, characters. I mean, it's like the ultimate Spark Notes. And honestly, when I'm on my phone, I'm like literally reading, anything Spark Notes related. I mean, it's not Spark Notes, TV trope related, but yeah. But I'll just give you a little snippet of basically, it has its own page. That's the thing about the Mammy trope. It has its own page on TV trope. So we're going to read, not the whole thing because there's a couple of paragraphs, but we'll just read a couple of lines in that and basically kind of just break down the top Mammy things you see in TV shows and movies, even the ones you probably didn't recognize growing up. And basically, I'll give you my reason of why the Mammy trope is not a good trope. Like I said, it has its own page. Like I said, this is the TV trope website. You go here, I typed in Mammy, and as I said, it has its own page. So actually, I can see myself better a little right here. Anyways, so yeah. So I'm just going to read just a couple of sentences, and that's it. And guess who's in the picture? Hattie McDaniel's role in Gone with the Wind. So yes, like I said, she's basically brought that role to life. So let me just read some of this and they'll give you their definition of what the Mammy trope is. I'm not going to read this part because, who cares? Okay. So basically, the Mammy is a middle-aged, often overweight black woman employed as a domestic servant to a rich white family, usually as a maid, cook, or nanny. Older than radio, subtrope of ethnic menial labor, and they have their own trope. If you press on the blue, we're not going to go to their page, but they have their own page. If it's highlighted blue, it has its own page. But we're just going to continue reading. Older than radio labor, if I'm pronouncing that part right. Mammy was born in the deep south of antebellum America. Actually, let me get my face off of this. But continued to be present for a century after the American Civil War. and is also popular in Cuba. Yeah, we know how Cuba gets down. During slavery, she was largely resigned to her enslavement, perhaps even finding happiness in slavery. And see, that's another reason why we don't like it. If it's a subservient role and they're happy in it, especially when it's a subjugating kind of role, yeah, that's not good. We're not really happy in slavery. No one should be happy in slavery or torture or whatever. But anyways, continuing. Happiness in slavery, likely owing to the fact that she lived and worked in the big house rather than toiling in the fields. After emancipation, Mammy continued to serve as a menial, if I'm pronouncing that right, domestic for to whites and continued to aspire to little higher, though she may have wanted more for her own children, if they even showed she had any, if more options were available to them. In her freedom, she may have also moved north, although her position and character are largely unchanged whether she lived in rural Georgia or Chicago. And I'll just leave this last one, and that's it. Mammy is often very plain in appearance. See, and I'm going to mention that in a minute about the plainness. Okay. Oh, wait, went a little too high. Mammy is often very plain in appearance with no expressed sexuality. I hope I didn't mess up anything. Okay. And see, I'm going to mention that part as the first reason why I don't like the Mammy trope. I'll be explained. Let me read that again. Mammy is often very plain in appearance with no expressed sexuality. A white mistress was supposedly, and mistress is another way of saying white master, okay? It's the lady master, not the mistress, like, your side piece or whatever. No, mistress is the lady master of the house. Not just lady master, so she's called mistress instead. Anyways, a white mistress was supposedly secure that having Mammy about the house was no threat to her husband's fidelity as opposed to a younger, prettier maid. Oh, they explained it for me. And I kind of already recorded it before I went here because, I didn't want to go back and forth with it. But yeah, definitely just explain the first reason. Definitely explain the first reason. So let me say that again. A white mistress was supposedly secure that having Mammy about the house was no threat to her husband's fidelity as opposed to a younger, prettier maid. In terms of a character, Mammy is poorly educated but has abundant common sense and is competent in her domestic duties. She's servile towards the whites but may be an apron matron towards her own family. And I'm not going to click on what that means as it has its own page. Or even towards her master's children if she's in a position of authority over them. Her earthly common sense may, if her white masters or employers become sufficiently zany, led her to become the only sane man of the household and develop some characteristics of the sassy black woman. That's another reason I'm going to point out. So yes, the sassy black woman. That's literally one of her main personalities. But anyways, perhaps even being driven to deliver a whoopee epiphany speech. Yeah, all these stuffs y'all can click yourselves. I'm not about to click these extra stuff, but that's what I just wanted to read when it came to the TV trope of the Mammy characteristics. So yeah, I'm just going to put this in the video within the video. So there you go. Okay, and even though it does give you a list of like examples, I'm just going to go off the top of my list of the top examples of a Mammy trope. First, like if you watch Tom and Jerry, like that's one of my favorite cartoons growing up. I used to watch that on Boomerang. But when Tom he's the house cat and basically like if there was a human around, they would show this big black lady. They don't show the whole character in their face or whatever, but you could see from the legs up that obviously it was supposed to be a black lady. She was supposed to be heavier set, and she's always getting on Tom for messing up the house or something like that. So and it already kind of looks cringy then, but they said even back then in the older versions of it, she was literally like in housemaid form. So I guess they have to get on the creators of that show to not make it so obvious. So they make it seem like if the black lady was the house owner and Tom was her pet. So, but still, they still kept the sassiness. They still kept her looking big and whatever. But they made her the house owner instead of the house cleaner. But still, very mammy-ish. And then also there's another movie. I'm going to talk about this movie because it is nominated, but not for this character. There was another black character that's nominated for this movie, but guess who's coming to dinner? You had Isabel Stanford. Basically, if you watch The Jeffersons, she's Wheezy from The Jeffersons, but her name is Isabel Stanford. She basically is the mammy to the white family in the movie, and she is like such a ball buster. I mean, like when Sidney Poitier comes and she basically is getting on him, calling him a troublemaker, saying, "Oh, if you hurt that little white girl's feelings, oh, I'm gonna get you." Like, lady, can you let her be happy? Like, sheesh. I mean, like if the white family's kind of cool with him, or at least trying to be cool with him, what's your deal? Like, ugh. Like, just hate to see a brother moving up. And not like with a white woman, just moving up, just not being a domestic worker, basically. But still, she was basically giving him a hard time. And the only one in the household giving him a hard time. So wow, that was very cringe. I mean, look, Isabel, we like you in Jeffersons and other shows you're in, but this was not it for you, Miss Sanford. This was not it for you. And then there's also the TV show called Give Me a Break with Nell Carter. And basically, it's a little different. They call it a deconstruction of the trope. Basically, it's more nuanced. They give her a fleshed out character. She's still a big black lady who still is taking care of the white family whose house she's living in, but the show is about her. There's episodes basically centered around her, and she does stuff outside the house. She does have a life. She does have other family members that's mentioned. She probably goes on dates and stuff. I haven't watched the whole seasons of that show. It's been a while, but yeah, I remember watching the show, and basically she's basically their maternal figure since their white mother died, but she's obviously still doing the chores. She's still helping them around. She's still sassy and whatever and giving life lessons and stuff. So yeah, still kind of the mammy who's actually the main character this time. So there's that. And okay, even in anime, not in a lot of anime, but there's one that they mentioned. Basically, it's based off um the story The Little Women or something like that. And I forgot, was it Louisa May Alcott who wrote that book? I think so, but basically the story Little Women, and they made an anime version of it, and basically they had a maid, a mammy maid, and surprisingly she doesn't look too stereotypical. In anime shows they always give the black characters big, like discolored big lips and stuff like that, and basically just make them a complete caricature. Surprisingly her design looks kind of realistic and not too cringy looking, but it's still a big black lady, cleaning the house of a bunch of white coded characters. I think all the characters are white. I know anime people like to make their characters look white as crap, to where white people think they own the whole concept of anime because all the characters look white with blonde hair and blue eyes, so they can't be Asian if they look like that. But since this is based off a book written by a white person and it's about white characters, I think these characters are still supposed to be white ethnically. So still black lady cleaning a house of white family. So yeah, still mammy-ish. And even in like household products. I mean, hello, Mrs. Butterworth, Aunt Jemima. Now I know they changed the Aunt Jemima picture recently. Okay, she's not wearing a headscarf anymore and whatnot, and she doesn't look too like a domestic maid, but still, I mean, Aunt Jemima for the longest was very mammy-ish. And even Mrs. Butterworth is up for debate. What's the color of syrup? Yeah, what's the color of syrup? And she's, dressed the way she looks. I mean, yeah, figure it yourself. And worse is that they're still antiques of the mammy somewhere. There's some, like, if you look at, I'm not going to say any white person, I'm sure not all white people have these kinds of things, but if you look at some white people's household items, especially the older ones, they probably have some knickknacks and cookie jars that has a mammy uh shape item there. And it's like, wow, really, really. So yeah. So it's still, so it basically, the Mammy trope is so popularized that it's in household items. It's that bad. But I'm gonna give you my top 3 reasons of why the Mammy trope is well, I don't like the Mammy trope. Okay, I know there are other YouTube videos kind of breaking it down in their own way, so this is my breakdown in my way of the Mammy trope. So, number 1 reason, the physical juxtaposition between the black woman and the white woman. Now, when you usually see Mammy, she's usually like the person she tends to the most in the household is the white woman. She's like either the matriarch of the family or she's the daughter of the matriarch of the family. So she's usually a younger, thinner, more wealthier woman, while the Mammy is usually older, heavier set, and obviously dressed in drab. So, yeah, so, but here's the thing, not all, well, because I'm going to talk about the personality of the Mammy afterwards, but not all Mammies have to be fat. Okay, I mean not all, but I'll get to that in a minute. I don't want to jump off too subject, but basically the Mammy in those shows and movies is usually a bigger black lady who's older and more less glamorous looking. Now, that's honestly to help white women feel better, okay? Because the thing about them, and I'm not saying all of them are insecure, but a lot of them are very insecure when it comes to black women in our beauty, okay? Like I said, I mean, when you say us, I mean, come on. Come on. But so, so we get a lot of haters. We get a lot of haters. But here's the thing, the only way that white and even non-black other colored women like your Hispanics, non-black Hispanics and Asians and Middle Eastern slash Indians, whatever, the only way they could feel better around a black woman sometimes is if the black woman was heavier. If she was like bigger, if she, if she wouldn't look good in a bikini, basically. Okay. So the Mammy trope back in the day when she's just a domestic household person to the white character, like I said, it made the white woman feel good about herself. And even though I'm kind of jumping a little too far when I'm talking about this movie, because I'll probably mention it again when I get to it, but think of The Help. During the era of The Help, like I said, this was like late 50s, early 60s. And basically, most of the maids were, like I said, they were middle aged, they were kind of big, they weren't supermodels, okay? They weren't supermodels. And like I said, the white woman usually had say over who gets hired or not when it comes to these women. Because think of back in the day, like during slavery, when they did have house slaves. Okay, we're not talking about just the ones who are lighter skinned or whatever like that, but think of the house slaves that were there. If there was a black maid who was skinnier and more in shape or whatever, and there was a man in the house, uh, the white owner of the house. Uh, let's just say he was having his way, even if he was married. Okay, when he would look at that skinny and fit black maid, and let's be honest, there were times that she wasn't even an adult, but we're not gonna even get into that deep, dark part of it. But if she was young and fit and pretty looking, yeah, the white owner of the house would definitely have his fun. And do you think white women just was like, oh well, that's Henry, let him just do what he wants? No, no, oh no, they hated it. They hated it. They hated it. So, and ladies, and don't think, okay, because I know some of you are gonna say, oh, so I guess if we're fat, we're not gonna get raped, right? I mean, sorry, oh, we can't say that. Um, oh, I guess if we're fat, we're not gonna get assaulted, right? Uh, look, anyone can get assaulted, no matter how you look, okay? But let's be honest here. When it came to the bigger maid, and I'm sure there were some that probably did get phallically assaulted. I'm gonna say that word since YouTube wants to act rated G of everything. I'll talk about how I'm annoyed with the whole, you can't say whatever. Well, can't say almost whatever and stuff on YouTube, but okay, let's say phallically assaulted. Not like people even knows what phallic is anyways, but I'll say that. So I'm sure there was some bigger black women who got phallically assaulted by the white males in the house, but you know, it probably happened more time if the black maid looked better than the white woman of the house. So to lessen that, not because white women cared, but because um, she was just jealous. And if she didn't want her husband looking, or she didn't want her husband to seem interested in them, she would make sure she would get the most biggest, masculine looking, maybe oldest looking, because, some of the times they were elderly, like old. They would hire those women instead, not just because they were experienced for their age, but because look wise, they weren't a threat. Okay, their husband trying to do whatever with those women because hey, they couldn't possibly be attracted to him, or I'm sorry, he couldn't possibly be attracted to them, but still. So back during the help era, like I said, the women kind of was more in charge of who was cleaning our house and stuff like that, and so yeah, so they would get, like I said, the heavier one. They would get the much older looking one. They would get the most masculine, medial looking one that they could find to clean the house and not give the husband any ideas. So yeah, so that's why a lot of them like Gone with the Wind, because a lot of white women see themselves in Scarlett O'Hara, and and they like having a Mammy around. And even when I showed the scenes of Scarlett interacting with Butterfly McQueen and how she was so like just impatient with her, she was just literally slapped her and whatnot. And yeah, Prissy, her Butterfly's character's name, she seemed like a ditz, but she basically just treated her so bad that she physically assaulted her. So, I mean, it could be like, okay, she could be just jealous of her. Yeah, and like I said, they made Prissy just seem like so incompetent and, just, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. That's why she was like that. And then it's like, okay, well, why couldn't Prissy be a big gal too? Huh? Why couldn't they make her big? They could have made her and use Hattie and just, just show how she treats any slave. But no, they used the better looking slave to get treated like crap, while they used the bigger one to make it seem like, oh, she's the more favorite one. So yeah, because let's be honest, I know people think it's not too deep, but believe me, it is that deep. So yeah, so just how Butterfly's character is treated in Gone with the Wind shows how white women, most, I'm not gonna say all, but most, either covertly or overtly, how they basically hate fit, prettier looking black women, and how they basically just, they just don't like them. Like I said, their presence annoys them. Okay, not because we're incompetent, we don't know what we're doing, but because our looks just defies how they see us. But when it comes to the bigger black ladies, the bigger, heavier set ones, they are like, oh my gosh, oh man, you're so great. They're all showing 32s with it. They're happy about that. It makes them feel better about themselves. Let's put it this way. There'll be less bulimia and anorexia if there was a Mammy for every white woman around. Oh, yep, I said it. I know, like, ooh, I don't care. Okay? If every white woman had a black, fat, either Mammy or friend around, and I'll talk about the friend part, later. But if every white woman had like a big black lady around them all the time, just catering to their every whim, the idea of the stats of a bulimia and anorexia would go down a lot. They don't feel like they have to throw up in the toilet anymore. They won't feel like they have to eat just a grape a day, And I say grape, the actual food grape, okay? So yeah, as long as there's a big fat black lady that makes you feel better, you'll feel skinnier in comparison. And see, that's the thing. And see, like I said, even though the Mammy trope isn't as heavily promoted today or as much as it was back in the day, that Mammy soon, in a way, turned into now the black best friend trope. Because think of it this way, there are shows where, okay, if it's a white female character, she has a black friend, the black friend is usually heavier. Okay? Think of, okay, a Disney show. There's Good Luck Charlie, where Teddy and her friend, I totally forgot her name, I totally forgot, but she has a bigger black friend. And, and she, friend was always the aggressive one. She was always the one that's, you know, more outspoken. And and like I said, there's a few others. I mean, I could think of a bunch of shows. I'm gonna list like pictures around it or whatever, just to highlight how often it is. But yeah, it's just, of course, she's not the mammy. She's not cleaning your house, but she's now your best friend. She's your best friend who makes you feel skinnier in comparison. And your black best friend is not only fat, but she's funny and she's sassy. She's still sassy, just like the mammy, but, and she's still fat or bigger boned like the mammy. But yeah, she may not be cleaning your house, but she's still there to make you white females feel better about yourself. So yeah. hmm And even in my favorite competition reality show, Dancing with the Stars, like I said, it's been like over 30 seasons. And of all the female winners that's ever won the show, and the only black female to ever win was Amber Riley. If you watch Glee, and that's another one. Amber Riley in Glee. There you go. That's another. And she's honestly I think she was the only black woman, black female character in the show for the longest. So yeah, black fat best friend here to make the white women feel good about themselves. That's another one. And speaking of which, like I said, back to Dance with Stars, she's the only black female to ever win the show out of 30 plus seasons. So, yeah, while every other female could look skinny and in shape and whatnot, what do we get as the only winner for black women? Yeah. Yeah. Which is why after a couple of seasons afterwards, I was just done with the show. It's like, no in shape black woman is ever going to win this, are they? Just, wow. So I guess the only time to win is if you weigh at least almost 300 pounds or something. Even though Amber did lose weight recently. She's looking good. She's lost a couple of weights, a couple of pounds, and she's looking good. So, looked like that back in the day, she probably wouldn't have won. But still, yeah, that just showed that the Mammy trope, well, the first reason of the Mammy trope, the physical juxtaposition between the white woman and the black woman, it highlights how society, or at least in womanhood, that society wants black women to be seen at their least attractive, while the white woman is always seen as skinny and glamorous and, good looking. And like I said, big girls, I'm not saying that if you're fat, you're automatically ugly. I'm not saying that. But, if you're just naturally big and you try to lose weight and it's in your family, it's just in your genes to be big. Okay, I get it. But don't make white women feel like they could just be cheesing around you and be all cool with you. Because if they're overly nice around you, they probably just like the way you look. And the way you look is making them feel better about themselves rather than, they like your personality. They probably don't care anything about your personality or how you are, but they just see you're big, you're overweight, and you make them feel happy about themselves. So just, you can check them and, and make sure that they're not just seeing you as just the fat friend to make them feel better. You know what I mean? So not everyone's going to be a size 4. I mean, even I'm still trying to lose them up in top of minds. Okay, I'm not in the best shape myself, but for the most part, if you're a bigger black woman and you feel like a bunch of white women are just nice to you, well, like I said, it's because you look the way you do and it makes them feel better about themselves. So just letting you know. And for the skinnier black women, if you're getting a lot of hate and you're getting a lot of dirty looks in the office area and whatnot, and women are just, the white women or non-black other color women are giving you a hard time, well, it's because you're probably looking snatched. You're looking very snatched, and they hate competition. So if you look like the kind of black woman that their men will be looking over their shoulder when you're walking by, yeah, they're probably gonna hate you. So just keep looking snatched, okay? Don't feel like you need to eat a lot for people to like you. Never downgrade yourself for people to like you. And like I said, bigger ladies, like I said, if you could lose weight, be healthier, great. But if you're just like that, just at least don't be any other parts of the Mammy that I'm going to talk about. Which leads to number 2 of why the Mammy trope I do not like. The overly caring of the white character or family above her own. So this is where the personality parts come from. This is where, like I said, the black, she's not just, she's not just big, but she just, and there's nothing wrong with being caring. If you're a caring person, you care about everybody, that's fine. But if we only see you just caring about the white family or the white character or whatever, and we don't even see you positively interact with your own people, that's kind of a problem. And like I said, you don't have to be fat to be a mammy. Like I said, shout out to Candace Owens and Nicki Minaj, anyone. So yeah, if you're just all up under the white people and you're caring about their feelings, and you're caring about what they say, and you're regurgitating anything, any talking points that they have to where you're looking down on your own people, yeah, that's that overly caring of the white people over your own kind of thing. And even in Gone with the Wind, the part where, Scarlett and Mammy were out in, I forgot what part of the city you were in, but they were out, because Scarlett was trying to get her $300 or something. And then there was a bunch of free black people just running around, not running around, just, hanging around, doing their thing, just having fun. And, and they were trying to get through, and then Mammy was pushing them like, hey, get away, trash. And like, wow, really, Mammy? You don't treat them like that? So, sheesh, go around. But yeah, but basically she didn't even, wasn't even nice to her own people with the very minimum interaction she had with them. So, yeah, so like I said, this is where, and it doesn't always have to be, okay, the Mammy is just mean to every other black person or a total, disregards everybody who's black, but she also is just not seen interacting with her own people. So, because think of it, I mean, does she have her own family? Does she have a spouse? Does she have anybody else to take care of outside of the white family? We don't see that. So we just see her taking care of the white people, and that's it. We don't see her if she has kids. We don't see her if she has a husband or whatever. But here's the thing, and I'm going to mention 2 movies. Like I said, they're Oscar nominated too, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But okay, think of Viola Davis's character in The Help. Okay, she was living by herself. Her son died. So she was a single mom. Her son died. So she basically, and yeah, she was friends with Minnie and the other black maids, and that's literally her only other interactions with them. But, she would have to go to work helping the white people and then come back to a lonely, sad house. So it's like she didn't have any other interactions outside of the few friends she had and the white people who she had to take care of. And even Octavia Spencer's character in The Help. She had a abusive husband that we didn't see, and she had a bunch of kids that we don't see her too often with. And, so it's like, even if they do give them a family, we don't see any positive interactions with them. There's just, it's just a bunch of kids she has to take care of and a mean husband, and that's it. But we just see her mostly at the white person's house. And then even the holdover, like I said, I think her character name is Mary. Same as Viola Davis's character in The Help. She's a single woman. She lost her son. She's grieving her loss of her son. So she literally has nobody else at all. And she just hangs out with Paul Giamatti and the rest of those boys at the boarding school, whatever. So literally, if it's not a negative interaction with other black people, it's little to no interaction with other black people. White people make it seem like we don't have any friends, if we don't have any other family members, any kids we have are either dead or, they're just in the background. You only see for a few seconds. And then, no husband, no love life. If there is, he's abusive or something. So, yeah. So it's like the only kind of stability she has if she's around the white family. So she's seen mostly taking care of the white people, the white character, the white family. So she's mostly seen taking care of them. And there's nobody to really take care of at her home. There's nobody to take care of in her neighborhood. So yeah. So that's the overly caring of, like I said, the white character and the white family above her own, which is number 2 of why I don't care about the Mammy trope. And then there's number 3. Number 3. Sassiness as a false sense of freedom. Now, there is nothing wrong with being sassy, okay? Like I said, we all got a little, dry humor. We all got little quips about us. And, even I could be a little sassy at times. But it became a defining trait for the Mammy character and just black female characters in general. Okay, so even if they're not the maid, they always kept the sassiness of a black woman. The neck rolling and finger wagging stuff. It's like, bruh, can we be just awkward? Can we be just awkward? Can we just be a little ditzy? Can we be something else that's not sassy? Okay, like not all of us are sassy all the time. At least we have other personalities besides that. And like I said, people, and I know some people are going to see like, well, if Mammy was a slave talking all that, talk, how could, it wasn't that bad because, if it was that bad, she would have got whipped for half the stuff she said. But here's the thing. As long as they were slaves, that's just probably as far as they can go. Okay, think of like a shark tank. And like I said, you're on the other side of the tank and the shark is coming at you. He's showing his teeth and just, chomping at you and whatever. As long as that shark is behind the tank, there's no danger. There's no danger of getting eaten. There's no danger of getting bit. So as long as the shark, the lion, or whatever, and I don't want to, compare a black person to animals or anything, but basically it's all bark and no bite. Okay? That's all Mammy could do. All bark, no bite. Yeah, she could be like, talking crap about other people and even call, other white people white trash if it was, like I said, a family member that, the O'Haras didn't like. But, if it was like, if being sassy is all you can do, then they had nothing to worry about. Because it's not like you were going to like slap them or hit them or, or whatever. So to white people, that was harmless. Say a little thing and you're still going to clean up my table afterwards. You're still going to go back to that shed. You're still going to do the same thing tomorrow morning. Like, that's it. There's no defining of, I guess if she said like, no, I'm not helping you with this dress. No, I'm not doing this. And yeah, maybe there would have been consequences, but just, being sassy while doing the chores that she's supposed to do, that's not really a threat. So sassiness as a false sense of freedom. It's like, it makes us think that, hey, as long as we could talk back, that's like something, right? Not really. Not really. It's like I said, it's all bark, no bite. And it's really nothing. Okay? And real freedom is just walking away. She, like I said, halfway through the movie, when the Civil War ended and all the field hands left, she could have left too. And that would have been a flex. That would have been something. But she did. So she stayed and stayed to be sassy and funny and all that other stuff. And it's just, she wasn't really going to say or do anything to really upset them. Okay? So, yeah. So those are my top 3 reasons of why the Mammy trope is just whatever. Like I said, physical juxtaposition of the white woman and the black woman. The overly caring of the white characters and family above her own. And the sassiness as a false sense of freedom for the Mammy. So that's all I have to say about that. And like I said, my next video will be performance breakdown and rating of the second black woman, second black person, period, to be nominated for a competitive Oscar. And again, that's Ethel Waters for her movie in Pinky that came out in 1949. So this is Spoil Raters, who spoils movies and rate performances, and I'll be back with my next video.